Do you dislike small talk or casual conversation? Do surprises make you anxious? Or maybe disparaging comments on a public forum make you instantly angry? Welcome back! In our last video, we established the core hypothesis: not taking the limitations of digital communications into account is making people anxious, leading to self-censorship and angry outbursts from being misunderstood. Today, we're diving into the first pillar of our solution: understanding your sphere of influence. To navigate this, I'll introduce a concept that is the key to unlocking true resilience in your life and communications: framing. As humans, we thrive when we feel a sense of control and predictability over our surroundings. It's why routines feel comforting and are such a powerful tool for stress reduction. But control here isn't about bossing people around. It's about being able to anticipate an outcome and be ready with the required action. The reason we get so anxious when a message is ambiguous or delayed comes down to how our brain is wired. According to the predictive coding theory, our brain works as a constant prediction engine tasked with navigating an uncertain world. It takes our past experiences and creates narratives of future events that are constantly compared to reality. If reality breaks that narrative, our brain instantly falls into a state of stress. This is where the narrative can become destructive. Our brain tends to default to me versus the world, setting up every challenge not as a neutral situation to solve, but as a direct affront or an attempt to block you. This mindset gets turbocharged in digital communications. When we write an email or a direct message, it feels comfortable because we have the chance to reread, edit, and polish the wording before sending. We feel like we have total control over the outgoing message. But this is an illusion. No matter how polished your message may be, there are a host of factors that are never in your scope of influence. The mood of the recipient, the noise in their surroundings, the time at which they receive it, and how they ultimately interpret your tone. These factors can lead to unforeseen outcomes that break your message narrative and create an instant feeling of enmity between participants. We see this constantly online. Someone posts a perfectly clear opinion and it's immediately received with anger or is misconstrued to paint the original poster in a bad light. Losing that perceived control over what and how we express ourselves is intensely frustrating and anxiety-inducing. And it is the root cause for self-censoring future ideas. Quick break to tell you about an experience I had. So, a few months ago, I was going through a very rough patch in my home life. During this time, I received a message from a colleague asking about the stage of a project that we were both working on. Now, thinking back to the message, it was written in a very business-like language. But from my end, it read very cold and callous, almost like an attack to myself. So I actually contacted this person and asked if I was doing something wrong or somehow blocking the project from advancing. And this resulted in a very avoidable confrontation if I had just taken some extra time to calm down and reread the message. This is where framing could have come in. Now, framing is an exercise based on the practice of mindfulness. Its purpose is to radically reduce the stress and anxiety you get from external sources by primarily focusing on the aspects of a situation or conversation that you can actually control. It all starts by breaking the traditional narrative of me versus the world and learning to accept a challenge neutrally. Once you analyze the situation, you focus only on the elements you can actually act upon. A common example is receiving criticism of your work. If the person delivering the critique uses harsh language, our first impulse is to feel personally insulted. I see this often when founders are presenting their startups. Framing asks you to take the words that were given, regardless of the perceived tone, and evaluate them based on what you can actually do with the advice. If the comment was indeed a personal attack, you just discard it. However, if the comment contains advice that you can act upon, you take the advice and act upon it, instead of dwelling on how it was delivered. The power of framing extends far beyond communication. I live in a small, densely packed city, which means traffic jams and reckless driving are an everyday occurrence. This is a perfect recipe for road rage, as you can't control how other people drive. Applying framing to the situation, you ask yourself to think about what you can do. Maybe planning your trips and routes with extra time to avoid feeling rushed, or allowing one car to get ahead of you in line instead of constantly fighting for that spot. Whatever action you decide to take puts you back in control of your narrative. A very important point to understand here: framing has nothing to do with finding silver linings or staying positive. It's not about labeling things good or bad. It's simply about concentrating on the immediate situation and focusing on what we personally can do to navigate it, instead of creating a negative scenario where something or someone is trying to actively push us down. Let's bring this back to communication. So, when we start a conversation, it's crucial that we have our audience and our desired outcome in mind. To frame a message effectively, our focus must be on crafting a clear message that includes as many details as possible. For starters, state the context and situation. Since nonverbal cues are not always relayed correctly, start by clearly stating the situation you wish to discuss. Even if something seems obvious to you, it may not be apparent to your audience. Next, state your input or need. Clearly deliver the information or request that you have. Finally, define the scope. Establish the desired outcome or the next required action from the recipient. This will set the boundary for the message. Remember, how the message is received or perceived is never within our sphere of influence. So getting too worried or worked up about that is a massive waste of energy. To wrap up, framing is a mental skill that defines your boundaries in an ambiguous digital world. By clearly separating the message you send from the reaction you receive, you remove the root cause of your anxiety and make space for action over frustration. This is the first step in creating a powerful communication framework. On our next video, we'll move on to the second pillar: adjusting your language to prevent misunderstandings. We'll look at how using the right tools and words can take the anxiety-free boundaries we established today and turn them into crystal clear digital messages. Sound interesting? Then make sure to stay tuned and follow the channel to continue finding out new ways to communicate stress-free and more effectively. Thanks for making it all the way to the end. I truly appreciate it and hope you have a great rest of your day. Until then, stay creative and stay creating.